Hello there, my name is David Pustansky and this is the Extreme Improv podcast. On today's show we have a bumper double bill of guest performers, improvisers talking with us today. We have first Orla McGovern, who is from Ireland, and we have Alfonso Garzas. Have I said that right, Alfonso?
That is perfect.
Oh, fantastic. So how are you both doing?
We're both well, and we're actually in two different rooms in the same house in Ireland at the moment, and we sound very international, but we have to fess up that we're both in the same country at the same time.
Well, okay, so just checking over my notes. So, Orla, you are Irish, aren't you?
I'm from Dublin originally. I lived in Seattle for a really long time, but I live in Galway now in the west of Ireland.
Okay, and Alfonso, now I've got here, and this is just trusting Orla's word on this, but you are Spanish, but you are a resident of Berlin in Germany, is that correct?
That's correct, yeah. I've been living in Berlin for 7 years now.
Wow, okay, and I'm in England, and I'm part Polish, Russian, and Ukrainian, so this is very international today.
Cool.
Perfect.
Okay, so the first thing I'll get to, just to get to know who our guests on the show are, is we'll start with you, Orla. Will you just tell us a little bit about your background with improv and improvisation?
Yeah, so I came from the dreaded world of acting and scripted theatre. And I sort of came in a very back door to improv. I was cast in a show really before I knew what I was doing properly. I started really improvising in Seattle. I lived in Seattle for a number of years. And then realized very quickly that I needed to also take workshops and classes as I was performing. So that's really where my improv started. And I worked with a lot of amazing groups in the States. And then I came back to Ireland. I formed a couple of groups and got involved in Improv Festival in the very early stages. And I'm sort of programming direct now at the moment. But yeah, I'm involved in a bunch of groups, and I actually met Alfonso with the project. We're both part of the Ohana project. So I can let him tell you a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds a good segue over to you, Alfonso. So,
all right.
Same question. Tell us a little bit about your background. How did you get involved in improv?
So I started, I saw my first improv show in 2010 in Madrid. That's where I was studying. And I fell in love with improv. Because I also had done regular theater before, but I always hated to learn texts and to play the same role over and over again. So when I discovered that there was this option of doing theater, we had having to learn a text and being able to be your own director or be your own scriptwriter, I totally fell in love. So 2 weeks after, I was taking a weekend course, and right after that, I started a regular course. And since then, I haven't stopped doing improv. Later after that, I moved to Berlin and I started doing improv in English because I never thought there was going to be improv in Spanish in Berlin. But a bit after that, we started a group in Spanish. A colleague from Berlin, Gonzalo Piñan, moved also to Berlin from Madrid, and his English wasn't that good. So he said, I'm going to start teaching in Spanish. And there was enough people in Berlin that were speaking Spanish as to start a little community, a little school, and from there start a group. And yeah, 6 years later, we've been running this. There's this huge school, and we've been there running this group. And I'm also involved in a group in English called Birthday Cake. And
Cool.
As Orla said, I'm also part of this European community called Ohana, which is a group of 50, I would say almost 50 improvisers from all around Europe. We meet 3 times a year to basically to talk about improv and to research. It's mostly improv teachers, so everyone brings their own.
We're a cult. We're a
We're a
cult.
cult.
I do agree. Improv teachers, there is a cultish aspect to it, which I'm discovering more and more, and it's fascinating. I'm going to come back to something like both of you kind of said or alluded to when you spoke about doing acting in perhaps a more traditional scripted sense. Alfonso, you said that you weren't a fan of it, and Orla, I think you actually referred to it using the word dreaded acting. Sort of.
No. I said the dreaded word. I was speaking in the. I think the way improv is viewed a lot by scripted theatre is very often viewed by improvisers, and then Alfonso went on to prove my point. I love scripted theatre. I'm also a playwright. I don't really act as I know. Sometimes I have to fess up to that point on improv boards and wait for the fallout. But I do work as an actor still, not as much with scripted work on stage. I'm also a storyteller, so I really like where all the places meet. I think we can be very much in our little boxes about I do improv, I do script, I do storytelling, and I love where everything is in a little Venn diagram and intersects, and that's kind of what interests me, I think, as an artist. And improv is part of that, very, very big part of that for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like improv is a form of performance and a form of theatre, but I wouldn't say that there needs to be an absolute separation. Often when I'm working with actors or teaching or directing improv, I'll just say that I feel like improv is a skill set, and I think if you are an actor and you're doing something scripted, that improv is, for me, the most useful skill in the toolbox towards any form of acting.
Absolutely. I mean, as a teacher, I really think they both inform each other, and improv really informs me as a writer as well. I really think I perform improvised theatre, and that's really what it is. So it is absolutely in the theatre family for me, and my scripted work, my stage work really informs my improv, but my improv absolutely informs anything I do with the script or my writing. So I think we should all be hanging out together in bars, all these art forms, and chatting about life, and not like being in separate places.
Definitely. I agree with both of you. And when I said that I didn't like it's just me. I just don't like learning stuff. So it's a personal thing. I have nothing against scripted theatre, and I do enjoy it. It's just I don't enjoy to learn. I also tried a stand-up comedy, and I also didn't like it because I didn't like to learn the jokes. Yeah. So
okay, but that's an interesting thing, Alfonso. So, what appealed to you to try stand-up comedy?
Well, it was also a personal thing. My uncle is a scriptwriter for stand-up comedy.
Yep.
And I've been watching monologues since I was a kid. Since I was 5, I was already watching comedy on TV and stand-up comedy. And I always thought, I want to do that one day. So there was this thing in Berlin as well, this kind of like monthly show of stand-up comedy in Spanish as well. And that was my chance to say, okay, I'm going to give it a try. So I gave it a try. I went to a couple of open mics. But it was the same. I wrote jokes, and I thought the jokes were good, but I never learned them properly, and I never practiced them properly, so that when I wanted to deliver them, it wasn't as funny as I thought it could be, or as it should have been.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've done some stand-up comedy along the way, and it's something I plan to do more. But it's an interesting thing, just because I've done some where I felt going up onto the stage that, well, I'm good at improv. I can wing it to a certain degree. But having a rough idea and then trying to do something you've scripted as improv, you often find that you feel that you miss the timing that you'd got when trying to rehearse it with the script in hand or something.
Yeah. I think also what makes a big difference between improv and stand-up comedy is the attitude of the audience.
Yes,
because the empathy that people bring when they come to an improv show, it's this empathy of, I know you're building something on the spot, and I want to see you struggle with it, and I want to see you sometimes succeed, sometimes fail at it. and I'm there with you. So it's funny when you fail. It's exciting when you get it.
Yeah,
and that creates a lot of comedy. In stand-up, people are on their backs, they're laying back and just like expecting you to be funny. So
absolutely,
yeah,
I think there's an element of like context is king when it comes to if you're performing improv and the audience know what you're doing is improvised. They have a different expectation and appreciation of what you're doing, whereas again, somehow it's developed this way, especially when you're doing stand-up, where audiences feel that they can show dissatisfaction and heckle, and there isn't quite that same thing in improv.
I really think it depends where you are. Because kind of a trend at the moment for people doing what they call improvised stand-up, which I think is really sort of, it's lovely where everything doesn't know where its boundaries are. I think it's a funny place at the moment. But I think if you go to a venue where they're really jaded and they get a lot of stand-up and people come all the time, and you're right, they sit back and they relax. But I think in Ireland, we're sort of newer to the world of improv. So when people come to an improv show, honestly, they don't really know. They think they're getting stand-up sometimes.
Yes,
so
I've experienced that.
You are actually playing to, or they think they're getting theatre, depending on how you've marketed your show. So I really think it's definitely down to geography as well. I've had some lovely experiences where people sort of came and they got that sort of that buzz that improv has, of, you know, us all having fun on stage and not being mean to the audience. That's another thing. Stand-ups have a reputation for picking on audience members, and I think when people realize, improv, it's a sort of nicer version of stand-up sometimes.
I completely agree.
I really think it depends. Yeah, it depends where you are.
I did the Brighton Fringe last year, and some of the audience members that were coming into our show, there was like one group of people, and this was a quite late night show, and they were slightly drunk, to be fair. But they were coming in and they were like, are you going to pick on me? And then they were like, say, no, pick on him. I was like, that's not quite how this show works. But I then had the expectation that they were going to pick on me, but actually they were quite lovely. So sorry, you were saying.
I wanted to ask you guys a question, since we're talking about the differences between these audience interactions between countries and stuff. I got the feedback or the question recently about when I invite people to an improv show, they say, but do you ask the audience members to join to jump on stage, or do you ask for volunteers and stuff? Like, people are afraid that if they go to improv, they might be asked to go on stage and do stuff, and they're afraid of that. So that's one of the things that I saw. Some people, like, it was put them off to come into an improv show. Did you?
It really
get something
depends.
Like that as well?
Yeah, it for me, it even goes the other way. My group was the first group in Ireland to open a major like theatre festival with an improv show, which was a big deal. But it was partly because of the way we marketed the show. I mean, we never hid the fact that we were doing an improvised show. But a lot of people came and said, I didn't know this was improv. I really liked it. What's wrong? So I think it's really like how you market something. I think people, like I said, think stand-up and if they're not used to improv, they actually will confuse theatre, stand-up and improv, and they won't really know what they're getting. Generally, I think closer to stand-up than theatre. So, yes, there's a pick on me. I think every single show I've done where it's not a bunch of improvisers in the audience. And frankly, I personally prefer when it's a regular cross-section audience than a bunch of improvisers, because you're really earning everything you do on stage as a piece of theatre. I mean, it's like doing a theatre show. I think if you have only actors in the audience who do scripted theatre.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting thing, and it's an interesting topic. Because when you do improv, you can often get caught in the bubble of doing improv and talking with other improvisers and discussing approaches and techniques and these kind of things. How important is it to you guys that when you're performing, you do something that's understandable and accessible to a general audience? Or is there a sense of that you can do shows that is going to be for the already initiated and improv for improvisers? Or is that a mistake? Is it, because I don't think improv is as widespread as sometimes when you're in the bubble you think it is, because as you say, people will turn up and think it's stand-up or what have you.
Sure. Well, I mean, the festival experience is very different. As somebody who teaches at festivals as well, you know that probably 2/3 of your audience, at least in a festival, is going to be improvisers. Maybe 50%. It depends on the festival. But I think, like, recently we did a show for Culture Night in a really rural town in the west of Ireland with some incredible international acts, you know, doing music or whatever. But I think maybe out of an audience of about 200 people, I think 6 people had seen improv before.
Wow.
Cool.
Which was really lovely. I don't, honestly, now that I think about the question, I don't think I've ever decided to do my improv for improvisers. I think it's always been for an audience. You know, I don't, but of course at festivals, you know, there's some little in-jokes or little improv things that, you know, oh, well, you know, they got that. But it really, for me, it should be for an audience walking in from the street and you don't know who's in the audience.
Yeah, I couldn't
Definitely.
agree more. I couldn't agree more. What's your take on that, Alfonso?
I completely agree, and it's kind of, I think it's related to what we were talking about, the cult that improv is a little bit. Improv is this thing that, like, it doesn't suck your life, but if you get into it, you're very into it, and you go to improv shows, you go to improv workshops, you're in this dynamic, and so it happens that if you have a school and you put up shows, part of your audience are always going to be your students, and that's great. But we shouldn't keep the bubble closed. We shouldn't keep it as a bubble. We should aim for reaching this broader audience and making shows that anyone can understand, not only improvisers, and making shows that can be seen as theater, can be seen as comedy, but that you don't need to be an improviser to understand what it is. And I was recently performing and talking to this other member of Ohana, which is part of Copenhagen Improv Committee.
Yeah.
And they are big. They're very big. They have 1,000 students. They have shows almost every day of the week. And the way they did it is doing shows that anyone can understand, appealing to a broader audience, and also marketing it better, bigger, and to a broader audience, using terms that anyone can, and that can be appealing to everyone, not just to improvisers, and reaching farther than just the bubble.
And I think just to add to that, just to add to that as well, and I know who you're talking about, and they do great work there. Just to add to that, I think the opposite side of that, to broaden your audience sphere, is to make art, is to make improvised theatre. And just like regular scripted theatre, you know, you'll have your sort of crowd pleaser, you know, your panto or whatever it is, but also to make theatre that, yes, it may not appeal to everybody, but it will appeal to a theatre goer. So to do a risky show, or a show that's not necessarily all about comedy, but so it is accessible to people, not just improvisers, but maybe in a different way, maybe looking for the artistic angle of it rather than trying to make it a joke improviser show. So I think you can kind of look in both angles for that.
I agree, and I actually believe both can be done, because it's true that people from Copenhagen do improv comedy and they market it that way. But I've also seen during my career that if you get your audience used to long form, they will ask you to do long forms. If you get your audience used to do more dramatic and more deep stuff, they will go for that and they will start liking that more. And whenever they see a jokey, they will not like it. I think you can grow. It depends more about how you market it, more than what you actually do on a stage. What you do on a stage has to be understandable and has to appeal to people, to the broader audience. But I'm saying that the broader audience only wants comedy and only wants like jokey stuff. I think you can do both.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
I completely agree that there's a place where you can do everything. And I can't remember, one of you just said it. I think there is this aspect where you perhaps you both said it, in fact, where you do something that's a crowd pleaser, something that will invite the audience in and it will get them to start to, in a sense, it's an initiation. If they come in and they see the more short form game, comedy, pun and gag based stuff, they'll understand that the performers are improvising, and that might be the next step to, oh, but people could do this as a whole play, or they could do dramatic improv, and I think that's the route in for a lot of people.
It is. It's one. Yeah. I'd say it's one of the routes in. I've seen it done the other way as well, where there's actually some really amazing theatre companies in Ireland doing basically improvised theatre, but not calling it improv, and they're calling it many other things, and sort of being funded because it's a form of theatre. And this is a real passion for me to get improv recognised as very much part of legitimate theatre scene. I think, like, for example, our show with the Sky Babies, a lot of people came to the show to see a piece of theatre that looked interesting in the blurb, and then came out and went, oh, it wasn't scripted. So I think they came from a different angle. I definitely think your hook about getting people into short form stuff and fun is great, but I also think there is another way in to actually present a piece of improvised theatre.
Let's just pick up on that. So if people come in and they didn't know it was improv, at what stage and how do they become clued up that what they saw was improv?
Well, as we probably all know, even if you tell people in the blurb and you tell people, there's a certain percentage of people that will still go, oh, but which parts did you write? Yeah. So it did say in our promotional material, when people came in, an improvised piece of theatre in the programme, but we also worked it into our sort of theatrical introduction, because it was a piece that involved space and time and journey and lots of music and sound effects and stuff. So we actually chatted the audience first, and we'd said, everything you're about to see, apart from this introduction, is entirely improvised. We are going on a journey with you. So we made it sort of quite theatrical, but said it to them again. So they basically, when they sat down, they knew they were getting a piece of improv.
Okay.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't really agree that you need to start. I completely agree with Orla that what you need to do is get people to sit in the theater.
Yeah.
Once they and you can do that however you want. You don't need to promise them comedy. You don't need to promise them something short or funny. You just need to get them to the theater. And if once they're in the theater, they see good quality, they see good acting, they see good stories, or they see good comedy, or they see something that doesn't make them cringe, then you get them, and they will come again.
I agree 100%. And I think for us, we just said that because it was sort of like a little bit of a flagship for improv in Ireland, because it was the first major theatre festival that was opening with an improv show. So I personally, it was a little bit of a thing I was grabbing onto. It was a show called Suitcase, and it was five or 6 years ago in the Galway Theatre Festival, and it was with my group, the Sky Babies. And we've actually done the show a few times, but it was Galway Theatre Festival are great. They're very progressive. But since then, the Dublin Fringe Festival I think it was like the guys from Autocorrect were included in the Fringe Festival in Dublin. And there's been a couple of improv shows starting to creep in to Culture Night, to major events that aren't just about, I love short form, but they aren't just about, they're inviting long form theatrical groups to perform as well.
Yeah. Okay, and let's talk a little bit about Improv Fest Ireland, because I understand, Alfonso, that's why you're currently in Orla's house, building, apartment. So
Yes.
This feels like the relevant thing of the moment. And yeah, how long has it been going? How did it get started? Who started it? This kind of thing.
So it's this is technically year 6, but the 7th year. It's been 7. We took a year off.
Certainly.
Neil Curran is basically the man who started it, the man with the wallet back in the day. Neil and I had loads of chats about starting an improv festival, and I was a starving actor, and Neil had a proper job at the time. And I said, look, I'll help you however I can, but I don't have a bank account. So he's been doing great things for the community in Dublin, and started Improv Fest Ireland, started sort of small and then grew every year. But one thing I was very passionate about was that we recognize improv as an art form. So from the beginning, we've paid improvisers who perform a percentage of the door. So it's done like a fringe model.
Yeah.
Because I believe there is a little bit of a culture of teachers and a culture of teaching and improv, and that's wonderful, amazing people. But a lot of the improv festivals, because we don't make a lot of money, but they're based around a conference model. And while it's wonderful and we all take part in them, I think we have to sort of take steps politically to recognise improv as a valid art form, and one of those is to pay performers, albeit a very small amount of money. It's a start. So we started doing that from the beginning. We've had improvisers from all over the world. This year we have some incredible teachers. Gary Schwartz is coming. I'm so excited because Gary was one of my first teachers in Seattle. It's one of the first people I took classes with.
We'll come on to that in a moment. I'm interested, just especially because I was in Seattle earlier this year, and so I'm just interested to know where you were out there and who you were working with and stuff.
Sure.
But sorry, you were saying.
Yeah. Well, I let Alfonso is coming. So bunches of us often get together from Ohana to make a piece of improv. We don't perform as Ohana. We perform as sort of groups that have met in Ohana. So maybe Alfonso can tell you a little bit about the crazy show we have.
Yeah, go for it, Alfonso.
Yes. So on the Wednesday the festival starts next Monday. And on Wednesday, the 4th, I think it is the 4th, we're going to have the show with Ohana, the Ohana group. But the group that we perform with is called, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, Chaglach, which is family.
Chaglach,
which is family absolutely no one could quite understand that. It was
his idea.
Okay, we'll go through it one more time. This is probably an audio thing, and no disrespect, but it just did sound like you were having a coughing fit.
It's
one more time. Irish. How do you spell it?
I'll say it once. Chaglach.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah.
I won't repeat
So Chaglach is the name of a group, which means family in Irish.
Love it.
And the show we're going to do, it's called Keanu Reeves.
Keanu Reeves.
Correct. Yeah, it's a it's a tribute show to the actor Keanu Reeves.
Oh my god, this sounds amazing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how does it work? Is everyone Keanu Reeves? Is everyone a different aspect of Keanu Reeves? How does this work?
There's a little bit of that. I don't want to spoil it. So the only thing I can ask people, if they're around Dublin, to come to see it in the Dublin Festival on Wednesday, on the 4th of December, and check it out.
We're not leaving the subject for quite a minute, so let's talk Keanu Reeves. Okay, so favorite Keanu Reeves movies, guys?
We're not allowed to say because we'll get into trouble with Sarah, who loves every Keanu Reeves like children equally. And if you say anything or disparage one movie.
Yeah. So I'll say some favourites that come off the top of my head. So obviously you have Bill and Ted, and I forget if he was Bill or Ted off the top of my head. You may know this. You have the character Jack from the movie Speed, which was a great film.
Yeah.
Neo, of course, probably the most iconic.
Yeah, of course.
What was his character in Point Break with?
See, we're bad students. We don't know the actual fact stuff. We're more about.
I don't know what his name was, but he was in all of them. He was shot. In all his characters, he was a cool guy, and in Point Break, definitely he was like, he was the he that meets the she, and. So he was the center of the movie in that movie in particular. I also loved Little Buddha. I don't know if you've seen it.
I've not seen that.
It's really cool. He actually plays Buddha. He plays Siddhartha in the story of the Buddha, which is really funny. But the whole idea of the Keanu Reeves show came from Sara Sukal from Slovenia, who will be also performing with us on Wednesday. We had no idea which format we were going to do in the festival, and she said, "Let's do Keanu Reeves," and we all said yes. because that's what we do. We're improvisers. So no one says no.
So just to clarify, you're saying that the format is Keanu Reeves.
Yes,
the
it is
called Keanu Reeves. Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Look, there is no spoon, David. Let's not go into it too much.
Well, no, this is really good. I love it. It's like literally, I'm sat here with a big smile on my face.
As a festival programmer, also being part of Ohana, wearing two hats, it's like I didn't know what was going to come in terms of a show from the people in Ohana. And I said, maybe something very highbrow, because there's been a lot of very highbrow shows. And I sort of pretty much sprayed tea on my computer screen when I saw Keanu Reeves coming in as a show concept. And I'm like, okay, it's going on my short list anyway.
Have you reached out to Keanu Reeves just to get his take on this?
There may have been tendrils sent out into the Matrix, absolutely, but I don't know. I can't say for sure if he will be in Dublin or not. I can't confirm nor deny that, I'm afraid.
Yeah. We did the show in Gothenburg, in the Improv Festival of Gothenburg, just last week.
Yeah.
And we talked about it. We published it, and of course the festival mentioned it as well. So maybe he's seen by now that there's a tribute improv show on his name, and he might show up. You never know.
Yeah, who knows?
Because he is breathtaking.
Well, he is.
And I just want to say that sort of all of us, I think, like him for different reasons. Like, I don't know that. No, I'm already getting myself into trouble with Sarah. I don't know that he would be my favorite actor in the world, but there's a quality about him, and there's something incredibly iconic. Actually, just to see a bunch of people being inspired by Keanu Reeves in an improv show is enough for me.
That's fantastic. Okay, and that brings up an interesting thing in itself. Who do you guys have influences or heroes, heroines, comedy heroes, or whatever you have, like, that have inspired you, or you just really like?
I'm inspired by people from lots of different art forms. I think by who actually was in a group with way back in Seattle is an improviser called Matt Smith, not the Doctor Who.
Oh, this would have been amazing. We'd have gone from the Matrix to Doctor Who in that is like 2 degrees of separation.
2 degrees. So Matt Smith is an improv teacher and a performer, and he would have been part of one of the original gangs from Unexpected Productions. And
okay, so that's what I was going to come to. Unexpected Productions were the group I performed with earlier this year. They were
great. Were you in the International Fest then? Yeah.
No, not at all. I'll quickly share my story here. I was en route to the Alaska State Improv Festival.
Right, with Eric. Hi, Eric.
Hi, Eric. Yeah. Had Eric over just to do like a rehearsal with us earlier in the year in England as well. So that was bizarre, but
brilliant.
Not bizarre. I don't want him to hear this and think it was bizarre, but it was bizarre that I'd met him in Alaska and then he was suddenly in the nursery in London. But yes, we were en route to Alaska, and you stop in Seattle to get the connection. And I was trying to connect with any improv groups out there, and for one reason or another, we were going to work with Jet City Improv, and we weren't going to be able to get there in time. And I was gutted. I was like, oh no, like I've missed my chance. I've come all this way, and I'm not going to be able to do it. But just we weren't aware of it. But it was like the very famous Pike Place Market Theatre, and I saw improv theatre, and I was like, I'm going to send them an email. And I sent an email, and within about an hour's notice, it's like, you can be on our shows tonight. And I turned up backstage, and the guy who was in charge, who I had communicated with, had then gone home unwell. And
I was Jay Hiss or somebody.
Oh, quite possibly. I can't remember off the top of my head because this was about April time.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And so I ended up like walking around asking everyone who was working in the bar area and stuff, trying to just find. I was like, I'm going to miss 2 shows in the space of like 4 hours. So I just invited myself backstage. I was like, hello, I'm not a weirdo. I've like had this communication, I've had this email, and on 8 minutes notice, I was suddenly doing a show, and they couldn't have been more welcoming and like throw me in the deep end, but carrying me along the way. So shout out to Unexpected
great bunch of people. Great
It's
bunch
the perks of being in the cult.
Yeah, it's a lot of my closest friends were in UP, and in fact, a bunch of them were over. Like Jana Hutchison was over, and Elizabeth Westerman came over last year to Improv Fest Ireland with their puppet prov called Hand Job, and you might have met either or both of them if you're playing with them.
Do you know, I may have done. It was one of these things where I got everyone's name within these 8 minutes, but also had to take in what their format was, and I shook hands, hugged, waved goodbye at the end, and I was like, I don't remember who any of these people were, but but they were great.
They're great. For people who don't know, I lived in Seattle for about 12 years. The Pike Place Market is right there. It's a really iconic downtown old Seattle area, and the theater was really famous because it had people would put their chewing gum on a wall.
Okay,
on the
so
side
what
of
is
the
the story with that?
It's removed constantly, but people have been doing it for many years. Just a bunch of people started it, and the building I think that it's still in, UP is still in, it's quite notorious for being a haunted building as well. It's very old theatre. But I think they may have refurbished it in the last couple of years. But the gum wall, obviously it's a public, it's America, so public hygiene is very important. So it's constantly being scraped and sprayed down. But you'll also see sort of Japanese tourists sticking their gum on the wall and sort of putting their tongue up against it.
Yeah. But everyone was taking photos.
Yeah.
It was a thing out there.
Yeah, it is really a thing. Seattle's amazing. When I lived there, which was a while ago, I was in an all-female improv troupe called Seattle Goga. I was also in a group in Bainbridge Island called The Edge. That's where Matt Smith was part of. Gary Schwartz, who was one of my original teachers, was also in that group. So I have really, really fond memories of Seattle. I worked with Jet City as well. Shows in both theaters.
Oh, I don't know if I'm just losing a little bit of audio signal there. Well, are you still with us? Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd recommend going to Seattle if you can ever get a chance. Like, there's a lot of lovely communities there, very welcoming communities.
Absolutely. And I think within there, we ended up just segueing on to Seattle, but especially Alfonso, I'm not sure we heard. Do you have any influences, heroes, heroines in the world of acting, comedy, improv?
Well, I definitely have influences. I think all we are influences. We are all little parts of all the people that had an impact on us, and I learned from
That's
more
the
than
most diplomatic
50...
answer I've ever heard.
It is, but I do believe
left out.
I mean, I do believe that. We're all of that, and I've learned. I learned in a. I mean, of course, I don't have as much experience as Orla, but I also learned. I have traveled a lot with improv. I've been to many festivals. I've lived in different cities while doing improv, so I've learned from so many different teachers, many improvisers. I started in Madrid with Impro Madrid and El Club de la Impro and jamming and all these amazing people that have been doing it for 20 years, 25 years. And then I moved to Berlin, and I've learned there's this huge community with many groups, many in German, also many in English. They're amazing. Lee White, Imbal Lori are there. Our coach from in Berlin Impro in a group, Paola Galimberti, they're also there. I've learned in so many festivals from, I really would say 50 or 100 different teachers. But that's why that's why I don't have one or two heroes. To me, all these people gave me these little amazing tips that made me who I am. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'd agree. I think even I'm a newish member to the cult of Ohana. But I think when we get together 3 times a year, I think if we ever stop learning, something is wrong. I mean, we just had a weekend there recently. We can't all make all the weekends. So I didn't get to see Alfonso, but we just had a gathering there, and you just come away really recharged after doing workshops and kind of chats and walks with people from different communities all over. You're trying to expand your community, but you're also trying to just better yourself as an artist. And I think it's so lovely. And I'd agree with Alfonso. Like I'm constantly learning things. When as a teacher, when your students are there, you're constantly learning. You're learning from them, every day. So I think, the culture of teachers thing is a little bit of a bugbear for me in improv, because I think we need to be supporting the art form as a whole, as opposed to moving away from having gurus, but taking from what everybody's teaching us, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, excellent. So one thing I was going to ask Orla, coming back to the Improv Fest Ireland.
Yeah.
Running a festival, being involved in the organisation side, is something just from my own personal experience. So this might just be therapy or advice for me. But when you're organising an improv show, when you're organising an improv festival and taking it like that much larger in scale, what are the challenges? What are the things that because I assume like if we've started off as actors, started off as improvisers, it doesn't necessarily mean we're the most well-equipped or prepared for the business side, the marketing side. And what are some of the challenges? What are some of the things which you could wish you could go back in time 5-7 years and advise yourself that you've picked up along the way?
Well, just to clarify as well, I think knowing really clear roles, what people are doing, is really important. Even if you have a lot of enthusiasm and don't have a lot of business sense, you will definitely learn some after doing a festival for the first year. If you're not bankrolling the festival, then the impact is not going to be as major on you. But after working on a festival in different capacities, I've not only worked on an improv festival, but theatre festivals, but I would just say to people, really get yourself a really solid team, be very transparent about your finances, just know artistically what you want as well, and have discussions about the art versus the finance. Because I think people in this community of improv, we're all so lovely and open and wanting it to work, but it is a business too. So some people are obviously better at doing things than others. Have the people who are better at marketing do the marketing. Have the people who are better at finances do the finance. And I think usually where festivals kind of get into arguments or fights or money loss is really where the boundaries are very unclear. And I think if you have regular meetings and you sit down with a bunch of people, that is probably the way to do it. That's something I've seen work in other theatre communities that, they're very organised. Recently here we had a lot of stuff going on about payment in theatre and gender equality. So I'm part of a lot of groups that are supporting that in the scripted theatre world. So I just see sort of what works when there's a little bit of money flowing into that. If you can pay people to do this thing, this is great. But very often it's volunteer. So you take, you do as much as you can. And I think, I don't think anybody who's never run a festival, I would just say you have no idea what goes on.
Absolutely. Okay, so now we're just going to move on to some more quick-fire kind of questions, and you can expand. It doesn't have to be single-word answers or something, but we'll try to pick up the pace on some of these questions, and hopefully there's some bizarre ones in there as well that are just a bit fun. Cool. But we'll start with a slightly deeper one. What would you say you are most confident in? You can answer on an improv sense or something else.
I trust my instinct quite a lot, so pretty confident with my instinct, my intuition about I suppose about people. People make mistakes, but I generally have a good sense of who somebody is fairly quickly.
Oh, I've got to ask now. What do you make of me? We've only spoke on the podcast. I've mostly asked questions, but what's the vibe? Where am I going wrong?
Yeah, let's not say over the internet or over the phone. I think we sit down, have a cup of chat, and I meet you in person. Then I can answer that question. Okay. So just make sure you ask me the next time.
Yeah, I take that as a diplomatic, ominous answer.
I liked Alfonso immediately when I met him. and that's why he's in my house. I was like, I like you. And we hung out for a lot at the Athens Festival. So you just click with some people sometimes. Well,
yeah, absolutely. How about you, Alfonso? What are you most confident in, improv or otherwise?
I actually like challenges. I like the discomfort.
Ooh.
I like when magic happens, and magic happens when you are forced, kind of, or at least for me, when I'm forced to trust my instinct. When I really cannot think of anything, that's when magic happens, and that's when real improv happens. This magic of connecting with someone, this magic of knowing he's going to propose, having to deal with that. Yeah, I love that.
Okay, and putting that question on the flip side, and we'll start with you, Alfonso. What are you least confident in? And again, you don't have to go into anything too deep and personal here, but what's an area where you'd say you lack confidence either performing, or if you want to make this a bit more therapeutic for yourself, you can branch off any direction you wish.
Well, I for a while I had problems with speed. Of course, not the drug, but the
I hope not.
Keanu Reeves
back in the room.
Yeah, because
Keanu Reeves known for doing drugs? I feel like we're just massively slandering Keanu Reeves here. He seems a cool guy. He doesn't seem like the type.
Yeah, he's too nice for drugs.
Yeah.
No, but like for a while, part of a group that was very that worked a lot on short form and very, very fast scenes. And then I decided I didn't like that style. But coming back to theater improv and to more relaxed storytelling, many times I struggled with my colleagues because they were saying like, "Hey, chill the fuck out, like relax and like give it this 5 or 10 or 20 more seconds that the scene needs to get to the point before you interrupt with something, before you come in on stage with something and propose something else." And I still struggle a little bit with that. Sometimes I just need to, I have these ideas I want to propose, and I'm very propositive, which of course is a good thing. But I learned from a good teacher that I know in Berlin that your strengths are your weaknesses. So
interesting.
Yeah, and if my strength is that I propose a lot and I'm very active and I won't shy out, when I'm on a show, that's also my weakness. That sometimes I should, stay away.
Finding the balance, I suppose.
Exactly. Yeah. It's always that.
Okay. How about you, Orla?
I sort of, if I'm very enthusiastic about something, I am really bad at saying no to stuff in terms of overcommitting to projects. Yes. And then getting really overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I'm getting better at it in the last couple of years. I think that's come with age and seasoning. But yeah, sort of really wanting to do everything is something that is a little bit of a negative. I think you can definitely do multiple things, but I think overcommitting is something that can just get in your way.
It will just mean that you can't do everything to the best of your ability, really, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so again, quick fire, so you can answer this in more detail if you wish, but again, we'll start with you, Orla. What are you passionate about? And this can be improv or otherwise.
I'm passionate about lots of things. I'm passionate about improv. I'm passionate about theatre. I'm passionate about storytelling. I'm passionate about jumping into the Atlantic Sea.
Actually?
Once a week. I'm a sea swimmer, so I love jumping into the sea all year round. I'm one of those nutty people.
Wow.
Who like swimming in all temperatures, yeah.
And do you have a wetsuit that regulates body temperature? No.
No. I've written a kids book all about water stories, which is actually launching tomorrow. But there's a lot. It's all about water.
Why have we only just got to this now? Okay, let's get this plug in then.
The 7 to 11-year-olds, come on! So it's called Wild Waves and Wishing Wells. You can find it on the interweb, but buy it in your local bookstore rather than on the bigger sites, so you can support local booksellers. There you go. There's the plug.
Nice as well. Okay.
Yeah, so I love writing. I love jumping in the sea, and I love things that combine all those passions if I can.
Fantastic. And into you, Alfonso?
I'm going to choose two of the many things I'm passionate about. One is soft skills. The other one is meditation.
Oh, okay. What was that first one again? What skills?
Soft skills.
Soft skills?
Yeah, like life skills.
Oh, okay. Certainly.
Yeah. So it don't depend on knowledge, but depend on attitude.
Yeah.
Like emotional intelligence and that's
interesting. Okay, so I'll start with this next question with you, Alfonso. What is the hardest thing for you personally in improv?
I would say what we were talking about, reaching the bigger audience.
Reaching the bigger audience, yeah. Orla?
It's not, maybe not the
sorry,
hardest,
Alfonso, expand, go for it.
Maybe not the hardest, but the one that we should fight more for, because I do believe improv is this fantastic thing that teaches you a lot of soft skills, a lot of teamwork and saying yes to life and committing to staff and having a more positive energy. But if it just stays in the bubble, it won't change the world. And I do believe it has the power of changing the world.
Okay, cool. Orla? Really
similar to Alfonso. I think it's taking ourselves seriously as an art form, and I think sometimes we think we're such a great community builder that we that's the important thing, and then other people are like, we need to excel at the skill set, and I think we're all of those things, but just to encompass all that in an art form, take ourselves seriously and stop apologizing for improv.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree on that point. Okay, so next question is, we haven't discussed specific formats and things too much, but favourite short form game? Orla?
Ooh, I'm going to say it's kind of a warm-up, but I play it a little bit differently, and you've played sevens, have you? So do you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
4, 5, 6, 7, and 1, 2, 3.
7.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so
I'd love to know your version of this, because I think I do a version that's different from everyone else's. So I'd love to hear yours.
So mine it's quite complex to explain the full thing, but I'll give you the gist of it. Is that you play it in a normal way, except you tune in to when you're being judgmental in your body and where that is in your body, and so there's different focuses in the game. One part is that if you get it wrong, that's the obvious one. Then you run around the circle when you get it wrong. Yeah. If the other one is if you start to laugh, you get it wrong. Then we start to get sort of very specific. If you feel like somebody else has made a mistake and is getting away with it, say something. But then you also have to run. They both have to run. And then you can play around with calling them out unjustly and then playing with that as well. So it's all about fairness and unfairness, and sort of if you have a knot in your stomach because you feel like somebody's picking on you, what does that feel like? So I sort of use it as a body exercise.
That's really fascinating, yeah. That's really fascinating. It's quite different from how I play it. Like I'm sure the basic rules of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Do you do it with like the pointing to like the opposite shoulders, and you can change direction at any time? Yeah, so you sort of slap your hand across your chest to the left and to the right, and you can change direction anytime. You can also look one way, but it's all about where the hand is pointing. Yeah. Okay. Do you do anything specific or different on the number 7? On the number 7, you do not say the 7. Interesting. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you slap to the left or slap to the right. Okay. Instead of saying the number 7. On my version of it, we always do, like, we'll point as if we're, like, pointing to opposite shoulders. So, like, passing it across your body. But when we get to 7, get to 7, we'll always salute. And as you're saluting, it always passes to the left. And as you're saluting, you're actually making a number 7 with your arm. And so that's that's the way where we've incorporated the number 7 into it a bit more physically. But I always finding these variations. Yeah, we don't slap for any of the numbers except for 7. So we just say all the other numbers, and the 7 is the one that gets the
So that's
Crazy.
How about you?
We also played it a
Alfonso?
different way.
Hang on. We'll stay on 7 for a moment then.
Yeah,
Alfonso, how do you feel?
on the 7, we do with both arms in front of your chest, so to say, and the upper arm points at where the thing is going to. Yeah, and just recently we played it in a version that consecutively you would change what you do in one number for something. So instead of saying 4, you would have to say the name of a city. Or instead of number 3, you would have to do a sound, and you keep adding some of those, and it becomes, of course, a big mindfuck. Yeah, that was very fun as well.
Okay, so I'll just briefly mention for any of our listeners that do not understand how to play the game 7, we apologise that you still are absolutely clueless, but look it up, it's a good game. Okay, Alfonso, did you have a specific favourite short form game yourself?
So a game that you can put up on a show, I like the Square.
Yeah.
Classic Square.
Is that where people rotate round and they make different pairs? Yeah, okay.
All people in a square, they rotate, and each side of the square is a different story. So you see 4 stories pass on different beats. Yeah,
that's a great game.
I always like that
we call it a lazy Susan, Alfonso.
Yes, yeah, I've heard that name too. I've heard like every single game has got about 3 or 4 different names, and
they're like Irish traditional music tunes. It's the day Mary fell off the stool. Oh no, I know it as the cat escaped. So it's the same.
Yeah. But like everyone's guilty. Like in Extreme Improv, like I've gone out of my way to try and put twists or invent new games, and so when new people come in and we're rehearsing or something, even if they're quite accomplished, I'll be like, hold on, everything is going to be backwards and upside down and slightly different, and we've done it that way on purpose, but I'm sorry. And then they're like, oh, okay, so it's basically that. And so then some of my master inventions of new games, they're like, yeah, I just play this a different way. And it's hard to be original. It's hard to be original with new games after all this time.
Yeah, I think it's all a focus. What's your focus for? I love doing that, taking something people are really yawny and eye-rolly about, and then just kind of just shifting the focus slightly. And I think I think we forget that there's so much, the good old stuff, there's so much in.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I always like to, when I do a game or when I teach or something, I always like to know what we're doing a game for. Like, what's the reason why we do a square, or what's the reason why we do 7? And I like to actually say that to the students and go like, the reason why we're doing this is this and this and this. It's not just a stupid thing, or it's not just a math fact. It's not just do because we're in class. No, there's this reason and there's this reason, and we can learn this from this game.
Yeah, I think that's really good because not everyone learns in the exact same way, and so some people like I can just think back to when I was in trainings, there'd be exercises where people would be like, I don't understand why we're doing this, and I would be like, well, the logic of this is this, and the thing you can take away is that, and you might also get something else, etc. And it's useful just to know if you've got a little clue of what you're supposed to be getting out of it, then you spend that much less time trying to just puzzle it out, and then you can actually just do the exercise.
Correct.
Yeah. There's a certain validity, I think, to asking people and to like feeding that information through the exercise. Maybe doing it once and saying, "How are people feeling?" Because for me, it's definitely a body exercise. I use it for, and I say, "Is anybody feeling anything in their bodies?" And then as well first.
Exactly. I would do a game, a couple or 3 rounds, and between the first and the second, I would say like, so this is why we do this, or at the very end, like once they've get their own conclusions, I say like, from this game we can learn this, and this, and then if they want it, I would do it again so that they can do the same game again, but like focusing on what I said.
Yeah. Okay. So moving on. Favorite movie, either of you?
Top of my head, like Water for Chocolate.
I don't know that. I love this because I always end up getting recommendations.
Such a beautiful movie.
Isn't it?
Movie. Yeah.
And I can't remember doing it. It's a Spanish movie.
Oh, that's
yeah.
Is it subtitled? Is it dubbed? Is it easily?
It's subtitled, and it's sort of magical realism and civil war and beautiful imagery, and there's lots of stuff about the senses and food in it, and it's one of the best sex scenes in a film ever, I think.
Sounds great. So, yeah. Wasn't expecting that. You know, you made it sound so artistic at first. You know, senses and this, and some very good sex. Yeah, love it.
Well, I didn't say it was very good. I said it was one of the best sex scenes in a film.
Oh, sorry. How about you, Alfonso? What's your favourite sex scene in a movie? I mean, what's your favourite movie?
I remember when I was a teenager, and for many years, my favorite movie has been Life is Beautiful, the Italian movie La Vita è Bella.
Yeah.
From Roberto Benigni.
Guys, you're bringing up all these international films, and I'm just nodding my head. I have not got a clue.
Okay, Speed 2.
There we go. You're taking me on a journey from Keanu Reeves to international cinema.
I would say was the first Italian movie to ever get an Oscar.
Yeah.
Okay. Best film. So at the time was quite a thing. Of course, it's quite old, but at the time was quite a success. And it's just such a beautiful movie where the main character is just so smart and he conquers. Of course, it's a love story, but he conquers the girl just by being super smart and super funny.
Okay.
Yeah.
Moving on to the next question. Favorite city in the world that you visited?
Oh, come on.
Budapest.
Okay, we're gonna exclude like your home cities if that's.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I cannot say Berlin.
It's still hard. I loved Barcelona. It's quite beautiful. And I'm really in love with Finland, so I'm going to say Helsinki as well.
Ooh, okay.
Nice.
And Alfonso?
Well, if she gets to say 2, I'll say 2 too.
Yes.
Yeah, go for it.
So I'd say Athens.
Yes.
It's beautiful. It's like Spain. And
on my to-do list.
And Budapest. Budapest is really beautiful. There's thermal baths everywhere. Really, really cool city.
Okay. Weirdest place you have ever done improv?
Strip club.
I beg your pardon?
A strip club.
I did hear you correctly. Okay, I'm going to check. This was... No, okay, I'll just explain this, or...
There was comedy for a lot of venues, and there was a strip club in Kilkenny in Ireland, and a group asked me to guest with them. When we arrived at the venue, of course, there was no strippers there. The strip club had moved upstairs. It was being protested by a bunch of Catholics and crucifixes who said we were doing the work of Satan.
Wow.
Holy shit.
Okay, Alfonso, on that note, how about you? Where's the top that?
Well, it's hard to top, but the weirdest place I've done improv is at a tiny, I would say like 30 people or even less, tiny town in Brandenburg in the middle of Germany. We did this show in Spanish, and of course, no one spoke Spanish. So we tried to do like half German, half Spanish. We just happened to be there because we have this improv camp that we do every year with my group in Spanish. And the ladies that were renting us the Airbnb asked us to do a show in the festivities of the town because it was on the same weekend. Spoke Spanish. So we did this weird thing in a place where no one was listening. But it was an amazing show. I loved it.
Fantastic. Okay, so guys, we'll begin to wrap things up there. I'll just ask, is there either anything either of you would like to throw a question back in my direction, or is there something we haven't covered that you guys are burning to wish that we'd spoken about today?
I'm going to put you on the spot, David.
Yes, go for it.
One
second. I've just seen that there are messages from Orla. She can't hear. She's lost audio.
Oh.
Was it the strip club? Lol. You will have to type. Hang on. Yeah. This is happening live. This is a live recording. Hi, Orla. Let's see. I don't know if she can disconnect and reconnect.
Shall I give her one of my earplugs?
Yeah, actually, you're in the same place. You may be able to tag team this one together.
Orla,
Hello.
let's get together.
Okay.
Shall I give you one of my...
That's an amazing
take one of your headphones. This is very high tech. Hello, we're back.
We're back. That's an amazing thing. I don't think it's ever been the case before that someone has like been disconnected and they just stroll across and rejoin.
I just said strip club, and all of a sudden, like I was kicked off the internet.
Yeah,
it was God.
It was God.
Orla, just to catch you up, I just thrown it to both of you. Is there something that either we haven't covered today, or something you'd like to throw a question back to me, just to begin to wrap things up here? And Alfonso, just as I realised that Orla was stuck in limbo, you had just started saying something.
Yeah, you go.
I'm gonna ask you. You live in London, right?
I live just outside London. I live in a county called Buckinghamshire.
All right. I'm going to put you on the spot totally. What's your favorite?
Oh, I don't know if the internet may just be failing me here on my end, but I didn't hear the end of your question.
I was asking, what's your favorite improv group in London?
My favorite? Oh my gosh. Wow, I may have to give the ultimate... Do you know what? I'm going to give the really cheeky answer, and I'm going to go with the Comedy Store Players, just because they're the ones that really got me involved. They obviously led to Whose Lines It Anyway and stuff like this. And they are sort of like, from a young age when I first became interested in the improv, they were kind of like my idols of like, oh, one day I want to be doing what they're doing. So
nice.
I'm gonna, because you know I've met some of them, know a couple of them a little bit here and there, but you know it's easy to say the ones that I'm not going to bump into at the next festival, and then they'll regret me.
Actually, Steve Steen. Yeah, Steve Steen comes to Galway a fair bit, and I would say he's one of my favourite improvisers. Really fond of him as well. So he plays with them, right? He's one of their players.
Yeah, he is indeed. Yeah.
Yeah. Steve, I think he's just. I have to get a plug in for my international duo, which is Which with Kasia Kamara from Big Gosht. I think the great thing about a lot of these international festivals is we make all these new friends and connections, and sometimes they turn into artistic pursuits. Maybe Alfonso and I were maybe something to see if we can do something together. But I think that's the good.
My internet may be failing us here, guys. I just missed the end of that. So if you want to try repeating that again.
Yeah, sorry. It's one of the coolest things about improv for me is making these international connections and communities. And in even like something like you're doing right now, this podcast it's really great. We're just connecting people across.
Yeah, I love it.
By just chatting. Yeah, we're doing it.
Great. Right, guys, is there anything else? Is there websites or things that we can find you at that we need to get these final plugs in before we wrap things up here?
Improv Fest Ireland is starting actually on Sunday with a party. So go to improvfestireland.com. You can find most of us on the internet.
Yeah,
excellent. Very specific. That should not be difficult at all. But I'm sure it won't be, actually. It just sounds it. Just, we're on the internet, find us.
I'm sure you can also put the links when you upload the podcast.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Once we're done here, in the next few days, take your time. But, if you send me, links and things, I'll put it in the show notes, so there's no worry on that front.
Perfect.
Guys, it's been fantastic to have you on. And it's been a bit of a longer episode, but that's because I've got a double bill of guests today. And yeah, this is the Extreme Improv podcast. You can find us on iTunes and Alexa and Spotify and practically anywhere where you listen to your podcasts. You can find out all about our live shows. We've actually got a show tomorrow at the Camden Comedy Club, and there's not a chance in hell that I'll have this up on online in time for that to actually help plug the show at all, but I've mentioned it. And you can find out all of our upcoming shows, all of what we've got going on at www.extremeimprov.co.uk. Guys, this has been brilliant to have you on.
Thank you so much for having us. It was lovely. Thanks a million, David.
No, and you know what? We'll have to do it again at a later date. It'd be cool to check back in.
Absolutely. Brilliant. Listen, enjoy your evening not in European time, in English time.
You will do. Likewise.